Awesome. And with that, I think we can get started. So my name is Eric Lever. I am a customer success manager here at Blackbaud. Been here for a little over 7 years. I'm based out of the DC area, and I'll be monitoring the chat or Q&A if folks want to interact and ask questions that way. Also, like, highly encourage people to, jump on camera and or take yourself off mute to ask a question. Want to make this as interactive and helpful as possible. And so I know in some of these sessions, people feel like that they might be a newbie and that they're afraid to ask a question that seems really basic, but it's a no judgment zone. Come on in. We want you all to be able to leave the session with some extra tools in your tool basket for your reporting and program management. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jeanne.
Great, thank you. And we're joined here by Lisa Williams. And Lisa, is your camera working? Can we get you on here?
Yeah, I think I'm on. Everyone should see me up in there in a little box. Hi, guys. Yeah, Jeanne, I'm super excited to do this with Jeanne today for a lot of reasons. I've been on this Blackbaud side of the fence for a year and a half. Before my work at Blackbaud and working with our K12 solutions, I was at a school, database administration for 7 years, implementing our solution twice, in that full gamut of solutions. So I worked as a registrar, supported the business office, the development office, the admissions office, and I love our products for that, and I love what they do. And as they're doing their job every day, people need things, right? They need reports, they need data. So I was in that world of, different departments coming to me and saying, hey, I'd like to get this. I need to see this information. What does that look like? And so I understand that that's a lot of what we're looking at. That's what I love about Dev Days is that's the key part is pulling data, looking at data. How do you get that? How do you make the system work for you and provide that data, not just to audiences that can understand an Excel spreadsheet, right? Or audiences that can understand a list of data and I can take that into Excel or take that into Google and do something with it. It's okay, great. What other tools do you have at your disposal and what can you do with those? And who's your audience and what do they need to see? At the end of the day, it's that key word. It's data-driven decisions, the mission of your school. Let's make those data-driven decisions. And, at the end of the day, how do you start that? That's kind of me and Jeanne, we were kind of like, where do people even start? Some people immediately jump to, hey, we have open API. We immediately think of PowerBI, or we think of that, the Google product for that. And sometimes I take, my school, I would take a step back and say, wait a minute. I love that. And yes, we can, and we can absolutely do those things. But how far do we need to get? And what really do those people need to see? So sometimes it's starting and taking that step back and saying, let's start looking at that key information in smaller focuses and smaller information, and then build and grow from that to say, okay, now we can layer things and now we can bring in Power BI and now we can look at those. But really, sometimes it's just starting with our own Blackbaud fantastic dashboard builder, an insight creator of let's start looking at that data. And then that you become data hungry, right? It's that other keyword of data hunger of, okay, now I'm really starting to see what this can do for me, how I can present that to our boards, how I can present that to my head of school. So it's really important to keep those endpoints in mind. I always highlight to people, I did it at my school, both schools. Jeanne does it at hers, right? Let's start at those dashboards. Let's start at what Blackbaud can offer and then take it even farther to then what Blackbaud promotes into that kind of open API set, or that on API, even with lists and reports. So really excited to go over this today. I think it's a really, really important piece to tell people to take a step back, right? Some things like Power BI can be really inundating. It's not a hard thing to do. It just can be inundating. So let's take a step back and start in the Blackbaud product and move forward. So in this session, that's kind of what Jeanne's going to do for us, right? We're going to look at Thayer Academy from her point of view, things she's pulling and what she's looking at. And then we're going to have a great follow along demonstration inside Blackbaud Analytics, right? Inside our dashboards and what that looks like. She's going to help you guys kind of build your first insight and dashboard. I love to highlight to people, I think data is scary for some people, but what I love about data stuff, analytics, Power BI, you can't break anything. Nothing can be broken. I think people get really nervous about that. If I don't like what I did, I wipe it off the mat and I start over and I do something different. And I think that's really important. Some of our users here who come in for dev days, they got that down pat. They know that. I know when I started coming to dev days, when I was a Blackbaud user, I was not in that scope. So I didn't know that. So I think that was really important to just kind of take that step back, start from the beginning, and remember, you're not messing inside your system settings, right? You're messing with data that you already have. So that's always something that you can say, okay, let me refresh this and redo. So that's really kind of, I think, where we're going to go. And I'm super excited for Jeanne to show you this to you today. And I want her to do her intro.
Great. Thank you. It looks like, can you guys see me when I'm talking? Let's see. A few people put in the chat.
That's true. I don't see Jeanne either.
So I think there's something called focus mode that it popped up when I came in and it said nobody could see my camera. But Eric, can you check and see if there's a way, can you turn off focus mode for us?
So if you go to the upper right-hand corner, there's a little grid box that says view, and that should be either for speaker or gallery. So if we do gallery, or if you do gallery, it should show everybody.
Right. We're only seeing names. We're not seeing the camera feed. So I'm seeing Lisa's name. She can probably see herself, but she probably can't see me, I'm guessing.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see.
So, all right. Thank you guys for using the chat. We're going to see if we can get the cameras on, because I know I can't see you, all of you, unless you turn your cameras on, but hopefully you'll be able to see me. Okay. Looks like it did say configured for host to only see video. Yeah, that's what I saw as well.
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
All right, I'll work on that while you guys
perfect.
We'll
keep going. All right, I'm going to do a quick intro. My name is Jeanne, and since you, all right, can you guys see me now? Okay, there we are. Excellent. Well, since you've all seen how my name is spelled, it looks like Jeanne, but it sounds like Jeanne. It has a French pronunciation. You can think of the French mustard Dijon, if that helps you. If you prefer Italian food, you can think Parmesan. So little helpful device there with my name. I am the database administrator at Thayer Academy, and have been here not quite 1 year. So a new team member here at Thayer, but I've worked at several other independent schools and have actually been using Blackbaud products for, over 20 years now. So I have a decent amount of experience in different situations with the various Blackbaud products. And let's see, I also wanted to tell you guys that in all of those different jobs that I've had, I discovered that I really like working with data. I find it really interesting. And I learned, as Lisa said, I learned early on that not everybody kind of understands it. So I think of myself as a translator. I like to find ways to take pieces of data, which are just measurements of information, and translate them into something that regular people not attending this conference, regular people can use and make use of. Because if we can get all that great information we have in our systems over to all the regular people who are using it to make decisions, they can make better decisions, hopefully. So that's the idea. And we're going to do that by looking at a Power BI dashboard. We're going to start there and work our way back into the Blackbaud analysis area. And I'm going to show you a couple of them, and then we're going to build one together. So, all right, I am going to share my screen so you can see the Power BI dashboard. Okay, let's get that going. All right. Excellent. Here we go. Can you guys see this? We're looking good. Let me open up my chat again so I can see that. Perfect. Okay. All right. All right. If you can't see anything, pop it into the chat so we know. And please feel free to ask questions and stuff as we go along. So I realized I just put the chat on top of my notes. I should probably move that over. Yeah, there we go. So where we're starting is a Power BI dashboard that was created by Matt Clemens of Clemens Consulting. And he created this for Thayer Academy before I got here. And when I started, I was like, oh, this is really cool. I know almost nothing about Power BI. By the way, huge disclaimer, I'm not a coder. I like to pretend to be one. But I am like enthralled with Power BI, but a little overwhelmed. I'm always like, yeah, I got to learn that. And then I'm like, oh, wow. So you've probably seen a lot of Power BI at this conference. And so we're not going to dive into that. We're going to get into the Blackbaud analysis side of things. But we wanted to start with this because it'll probably look familiar. You may have seen some presentations with things like this already in the conference. So this is the dashboard that Matt built for Thayer, and it pulls in the key metric of users, which is showing us students and candidates, and the contracts. So it layers the metrics that we're looking at. So what we're seeing here on the top is a chart that lets our admissions team look at our enrollment progress. They can see the different statuses of contracts, of who's coming back, who's new and coming in, and who's not coming. And our main breakdown here is by grade level, but we also have some student or user information to break down new versus returning, and a gender row here. And then below that, Matt added in a really cool list, which is like a drill down into the data. So two things that this does really, really nicely is you can see it rolls up totals. You can total up a column. We've got these nice totals down here. And it also totals across a row, which gives us a grade level total. So lots of numbers, which is good. And then one of the other things it does is it gives the user a ton of filters over here so that the end user can come in here and really drill down and look for just something specific that they want to know about. And the table and the list will reflect how they set the filters so they can really dig in. And then he's done a really cool thing down here. He's added a link with the specific information. So if you click on that link, it takes you into the Blackbaud solution. So in this case, education management or core, and it lets you look at the record that makes up that row of data. So you can actually drill way in and look at the information. So this is awesome. Our admissions team really likes it, but it's lots of numbers. And I said, okay, this is great. What can I do? At a previous school, I was actually part of the EAP for Blackbaud analysis when they rolled it out for Razor's Edge NXT. So just a little side shout out to Janet Wittenberg and that whole team. So that, thank you for all the work they did to get that up and running. And they were pretty amazing. And I said, okay, I think I know analysis pretty well. Let me see what I can do. So we're just going to pop over to another tab here. So now I'm in Blackbaud analysis, and this was my attempt to say, okay, let me see if I can take Matt's awesome Power BI and replicate it in Blackbaud analysis. And you can see that I was able to replicate the table style data here. My metric is contracts. That's one of the key metrics Matt was using as well. So I started there, and I can break it down by grade level. That's awesome. And I can even get some of that other data in here. I have the contract statuses across the top here, and I've broken it down a little further with the new, returning, and gender. I had to kind of squeeze them together to get it to fit. But it's okay. It doesn't do all the things that Matt's does. One thing in particular is I can't total across. So I solved that by, on this dashboard, adding another insight. So this dashboard has two insights. Those are like the tiles that we're looking at here. And I put my grade totals, so my row totals, over here in a second insight. It's okay. It works. It's not super pretty. It was a good start. And then I thought, well, what does our admissions team really need? What are the numbers they're really looking for? And let's see if we can do something that is maybe a little more visually appealing. So I created something that we call the enrollment progress dashboard. And this was created pretty close to the end of our admissions season. I showed it to them, and I'm just going to reset my filters here. I was playing with it earlier, practicing for you guys. And they saw it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, we need to really think about this. This is going to help us a lot. So I'm looking forward to next year when we have it set up and seeing how they do with it. But what we have here is a dashboard with 3 insights. The 2 on the left are basically the same insight with different filters applied. So it's the same metric behind this insight. And then I've applied filters so they look a little different. The one on the far left, my key metric is contracts again. And you're going to notice as we go through these that I try and be really specific with my labeling so that users understand what my key metric is and how I'm breaking it down, because filtering is really important. And if your end users are going to consume this information and have it make sense, they have to know what they're looking at. You have to let them know how you've already filtered it and what control they have to filter it. So in the far left here, this is contracts. That's our key metric. And it is broken down by contract status. And I've just got contracts. There's nothing on here that's telling me that this one is filtered. So, okay, that's what we've got. The next one is the same metric, contracts, but I've changed it to returned contracts. And the labeling on the side here, you can see that there's a filter applied at the Insight level that is showing all except none or saved. Okay, what that means is there are 4 contract status levels. So it's taking away none or saved, and it's just showing us processed or submitted. And what we're seeing is that there are no submitteds right now. That's really good. We're at the end of our admission season. Submitted is where the parents have returned the contract, but we haven't processed it yet. So in the heat of the season, you'll see that we've got submissions that we're every day trying to process. And that's why I put this tile on here with this insight. So we could see like, okay, where are we? How are we doing today? But now we're at the end of this admission season, pretty close to the end, and everything's been processed. So that's good. Then the third insight here is showing contracts. Again, my top label shows what the key metric is, but it's broken down a little differently. I've got it broken down by grade level, and then I have it stacked by new and returning. So we can see, okay, who are the kids coming in for next year? And this was something that the admissions office asked for. They say, we always like to know exactly, in each grade level, what's going on. So one of the key things here in the labeling is I have all the contracts, not just the returned ones, the processed or the submitted ones, but all of them, because I wanted the users to be able to say, what does the whole picture look like? And then if they choose to, I've given them access to these filters along the top. These are called page filters. And these filters work on the entire dashboard. And as the creator of the dashboard, you get to choose if you want to allow your users to have control of them or not. I like to give users control of these. So if a user comes in and they say, well, I see what you're doing here, but I really just want to see who's coming. These processed contracts, those are the people who've committed to coming. Let's see what that looks like. You might notice that this insight on the right, the third one, changes pretty significantly. And I have a really nice kind of even distribution now. These are what my grade levels are going to look like for next year. Depending on what your end user wants, the information they need to consume, this might be what they're interested in. Or they might be interested in knowing that 7th grade and 9th grade are really big entry points for us. So that's why these numbers are higher, because we're making more offers of admissions in those 2 areas because there are entry points. So I like to give them that power to decide what they want to look at, tell them what I've decided to show them, and then give them the power to layer on what they want to see and decide what they want to do with it. Okay, so I have one more for you. And from this one, we're going to start building together. This one is our admissions progress. The other 2, we're looking at enrollment, which is both new incoming students and current students returning. This one looks at just the new people coming in. And what I was thinking when I built this was, okay, how do we figure out like everybody we reached out to and then who's actually coming? That was sort of the thought process here. So this dashboard has 2 different insights and they use different key metrics. On the left, I've got admits. Again, my labeling at the top shows what I'm working with. And by admits, I'm talking candidates. Candidates who've been offered admissions. And on the right, my key metric for this insight is, again, contracts. Okay, looking at who has said, yes, I'm going to come. I've signed my contract and I'm coming in. So 2 different insights with 2 different key metrics. And I'm just going to check my notes. There was something else I wanted to, I got to show you guys how to drill down, right? So one of the other key things that Insights lets you do, and that dashboards in Blackbaud let you do, is kind of like on Matt's Power BI dashboard, when you can see the list below. In here, I can choose to drill down into any of these numbers. I can hover, and if I click on it, I'm going to get a really nice flyout window over here that's going to give me a list of the records that are behind that number. So if you're following along, you might have noticed I clicked on the insight that has contract information, and it's going to show me the list of records. These are candidate records that make up that number. And I can mess around with the columns here to get different data for this list if I want to. But the other really cool thing I can do is using the button here at the top to create a list. That will take me back into the product solution. So because I'm looking at candidates and contracts, it takes me into enrollment management. And it gives me a sky list right here of those 21 records that make up the number that I clicked on. And I can adjust the columns. I can get information about that group of records. And if I want to, I can export it and wrangle it in Excel. I'm guessing we've probably got some pretty happy Excel users in this group. This is usually the low code, no code people are like, yeah, I'm a good Excel user. So that's one of my favorite things to do is I get the data I want, take it out into Excel, see what I can do with it. But when you're ready for more, you can come back in to your Blackbaud solution and see what you can do with analytics. So that's, I think I'm okay on time still. Am I good? All right. All right. Excellent. So if you're ready, if you have the Blackbaud analysis module, you can follow along in your solution, or if you just want to watch, that's fine too. I'm just going to talk us through building an insight and a dashboard. So usually you would start in your solution just like this in enrollment management, and you'd go to your persona picker and look for that analysis module. And it's going to take us right back where we were before. We don't like to see the zebra. There we go. All right, we're back in. And what we're going to do is go into Dashboard Builder. We were in viewing the dashboards before, and now we want to go behind the scenes. What you'll see in Dashboard Builder is you got two tabs. Yours might be blank if you haven't started or played around in here. I've built a couple of dashboards, so I have some on my Dashboards tab. And then the pieces that go in, and I'm going to apologize, my motion sensor tends to go off. So if my lighting just changed, it'll come back on if I wave my arms enough, but I might just be sitting in the dark with you, but that's okay. Hopefully you can still see me. The pieces that go into the dashboard are called insights. And if you want to go directly into your insights, you can come to the Insight tab and find one or create one here. I'm just going to talk you through two different ways to get into your insights. This is one, and there's lots of them in here. Feel free to come in here. Like Lisa said, you can't break anything. You'll see, like in mine, I have a bunch of custom insights because I've been playing around, but there are a ton of pages, and all of these over here, these are like pre-built insights that Blackbaud has given us. So you can always start with one of those. But for our purposes right now, we are going to go and build a dashboard. If you don't have one yet, or you want to start from scratch, use this little plus button right here to get going. I am going to go back into one that looks a little familiar that we were just looking at. So this is behind the curtain in my admissions progress dashboard. I have my dashboard builder area now because I'm back in the building area. And you can see that I have two insights on this dashboard. Okay. So what we're going to do is add another insight. So if you're building your own, you can follow along over in the dashboard builder. We're going to look, you can scroll if you want to, there's a lot of them in here, or you can use this little search button. And we're going to start with a candidate as our candidate insight as our key metric. So if you just start typing candidate, if you spell it right. Okay, you'll see all of the insights that relate to candidates. And we're going to start with this nice simple one here, number of candidates, really nice, clean, simple insight. You can click it or grab it and bring it over onto your dashboard. And I'm just going to minimize that builder. So I actually think I want mine up here. It's really easy to drag them, drag and drop, resize, put them wherever you want. There we go. You've made your first dashboard. Yay! Okay. So what you find is, okay, I have a number there, but it doesn't look anything like the ones below it. So we're going to go in and configure this insight. And what we're going to do is basically to kind of replicate the one on the left here, which uses candidates as the key metric. That's what I pulled, is number of candidates. Let's go take a look. We're going to go to the Insight. So this is one way to get there. Start on the dashboard, put on your Insight, and then go into the Insight. The other way is to go to your dashboard builder, Insights tab, and select your Insight. Both ways are going to bring you right here to the back end of your Insight that you're working on. Okay. I like to start with this one, number of candidates, because it's really simple. It's just a number. Really great. Okay. No. Okay, good. Sorry. I'm watching the chat a little bit. Looks good. It's what we call a headline. So if you're looking for a single number, that's what you want, headline. But when you're in here, you can just poke around. So we started with the metric of candidates, right? So this is our metric. If we didn't have anything in here, we're starting with a blank Insight, we could find our metric over in the list on the left. Basically, you can filter if you'd like to, just see just what's available for metrics. And the admissions area is a really great place to start in because you've basically got candidates and contracts, not too much to choose from. So right there, that's the metric we started with. Because we started with a pre-built one, it was already here, but we could pull it over here. Super easy. Take off that filter. Okay. So you choose your key metric. What is the thing you want to count or measure? And then what do you want to do with it? Okay. So once you have it, you come up here and you think about, okay, what's the visual I want to supply here? Is it just a number? Or do I want to make some sort of a chart with it, a graph, a table? We've looked at a couple different tables. This one's kind of sad. It's one little number by itself, but if you add some breakdowns, it'll get bigger there. Do you want a line chart? Think about how you want to represent this data. And the cool thing is you can start adding more information to your Insight and you can come back and play with these and see what they look like. So I know that we want to have this style. That's what we're trying to go for right here. So we're going to set it there. And then I know that we'll just go back and take a peek over here, close my list. We want to break it down by grade. Okay, so our primary breakdown is by grade. And then we want to stack it by gender. So now I know what I'm looking for. So I want to view by, that's my primary breakdown, grade. And I can come over here to my list. I can scroll. I'm a big scroller. I like to scroll because then I can see all my options. But if you know what you want to break down by, you can use the search box at the top. Sometimes that's a little bit quicker and easier. And you just pull it over and drop it in. Now I have my grade breakdown. Okay, did anybody notice? I don't see anything in the chat, but this is not the order that it was in on my other Insight, right? Lovely. It always defaults to like a descending order, biggest on top. Not what I want to see. So I don't know if you noticed, but as I brought something over to my view by, it added it up here. So this top banner on your Insight, these are the items in your Insight, and these are things that you can filter at the full Insight level. So these can be filtered or adjusted here. So if I go over, I can sort instead of largest to smallest. I can actually sort A to Z. And I know that the labels are numbers. Okay, so now I've got it in the order that I want it with the grades. Now I know that I also want a gender stack. So I've got my stack by here, and let's go look for gender. Okay, I'm going to bring that down into the stack by. Nice. Okay, so I have my grades in order. I've got my gender stacked. Now that still looks a little bit different than my other one. Again, if you're like me, visuals. Visuals are important because people can process visual data so much more completely and easily than numbers. And for me, colors are huge. So we're going to go traditional and we're going to change those colors because right now we've got female gender showing as blue, which for some people at first glance, that's going to be confusing. Let's go with red. And we're going to make our male gender that dark blue. And we're going to leave some unknowns there as green. We have some non-binary and unknowns. Those are together as unknown in here, and they're showing as green. Okay, let's see. We did this, we did the colors, we did the configuration. All right. One more thing that I like to do for most of the insights that I build is I like to make sure that I have the school year available. I'm going to add that as a filter for the whole insight. What that lets me do is make sure that I'm showing lots of data, because as I mentioned before, I like to give my end users the ability to filter the dashboard themselves. And if perhaps they want to go back a year or 2 or 3, I want to make sure I've given them all those school years on the insight level. If I don't, if I lock it to just the current school year, that's all they're going to see on the dashboard. And they might get frustrated. I want to see last year or the year before. So to give them that capability, I want to make sure I put school year up there. All right, let's check it out. So last thing we have to do is we need to save it, because this was a preset insight that we started with. My only option is to save as new. So I get my own copy of it. And we are going to call this, let's call this candidates for DB dev days. Okay. Nicely done. You guys just created your first insight if you're following along with your own stuff here. Okay, so we're going to close and come back to my dashboard. Hasn't changed. Because the insight I dragged over was the pre-built number of candidates. But I just made my own new one. There it is. It's right at the top. So really, instead of that pre-built one, I want the one I just made. So we're going to get rid of the pre-built one. And we're going to move this over a little bit. And we're going to stretch it out. And just put it over here. Okay. Make it go on top of both of those. And that is how easy it is to build a dashboard and an insight. I think I have 2 more minutes. I thought I'd show you one more thing on insights. We're going to go back in here. We're going to talk about filters a little more, because as I said earlier, filters are super important. Okay. So I mentioned a bunch of times, I really like to try and make sure I label things carefully. Since I already have this insight on my dashboard, I thought it might be interesting to filter my candidates to see, these are called attribute filters, all right? I want to see who has a sibling who's a student. Most schools want to know that, right? So there's this nice attribute called has a student sibling, because it knows if 2 records are related. Now you have to have your relationships clean. You have to have the users in your system related as siblings, and then this will work. And what I want to know is I want it to tell me yes. Which records have the sibling? Yes. Apply that. Nice. Okay. So this is now actually going to be, this is admits with student siblings.
This is a great area, Jeanne, because I'm going to interrupt here. This was one of those hilarious things when I started building, and I was kind of like, oh, I looked over there and I was looking at my what I call my endpoints, right? And I'm like, okay, I want contracts, or I want candidates. And I pulled that data over, and hilariously, at the beginning, I didn't go, oh, I really should click on every arrow that's underneath those to see, oh, there's so many more attributes than attached to those pieces. So that was one of those things where I kind of had a stopping point where I pulled data over and I'm like, oh, this is great, but I don't feel like I have a lot in our dashboard. So that sometimes panics people and make them go, okay, well, I have to go to Power BI because I can't, that's great. I'm getting candidate numbers. I don't just need that. So I, again, urge people, you can't break anything. Click on everywhere you see an arrow, everywhere you see the ellipses, everywhere you see dots. Click on those because you'd be amazed at what you find. I was talking to somebody the other day who also didn't even read, like they knew that we could in our pre-built dashboards could email those out, right? Like those can be scheduled and emailed out. They didn't realize that in our custom ones, you can also dictate by user, by role, who sees those dashboards,
Yep.
right? So kind of controlling, the use of grant access to anyone, grant access to specific users. So it's a pretty cool thing that, and a link to share it, right? And copy it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all things where, again, if you're kind of that touch nervous person of like, okay, great, I can drag and drop and that's fine. This is as far as I go. Okay, now we need something more advanced. I urge you guys, click every button, check every area, because you'd be surprised how far dashboards can really get you. So sorry, I had to highlight that because that was one of those hilarious areas that I didn't know probably the first 3 months of Insights when it launched at my school. I was like,
oh yeah, and that's perfect, because I was exactly going to say, like, once you get your dashboard built, there are properties that help you control it and get it out to people. That's exactly where you would get the link or how you share it with others. There's a lot here, and you really can't break it. You're not sending anything back into the data in your database. You're just looking at it through different lenses and changing those lenses. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I would love to answer questions.
I'd like to see, can we get a show of hands of who has built a report, who's building in dashboards today, or who, I'd be interested to see that with a show of hands of who's in Dashboard Builder today and doing anything. Or then maybe a show of hands of who's been hesitant to get into it and wants to start. Right? Who's in that realm of, I knew you guys had it, but I hadn't tried it yet. Right? So yeah, really interested to see those shows of hands.
Yeah.
Very neat.
It's a great place to start. You can't hurt anything, and you can learn a lot about your own system. And it's kind of your entryway, like you can get in there and start playing with it. And you might all of a sudden find like, oh gosh, now I want to do really more complicated things. Get through that API and get over to Power BI. And that just opens the doors wide open. But this is a really great place it's like the kiddie pool. You're going to learn how to swim. You can just splash around in here for a while.
That's it. And again, that starts that data hunger. People, whether it's your admissions team or whatever department you're talking to, they know they want data, but it's always sometimes that really broad pie in the sky conversation of what they want to get. And sometimes you have to go, okay, let's back up a step. Absolutely. As a data admin person, especially, I'm writing all that stuff down. I'm going, okay, yes, we need to get you this. And that's great. We need to do this. But sometimes it's taking that step back, because it turns out then when they sometimes see that data, they're like, oh, no, I need to see this completely differently. Or can we then do this and this? So that, again, I go back to that hunger. It kind of starts to build and build. But this is that great starting point. This makes them comfortable understanding even what they're seeing and what they need to go for, which is really nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I see we have a question. Is there any way to pull in advanced lists into Insight Designer? So advanced lists, I love advanced lists. Advanced lists takes you into that open API, right? That kind of Power BI realm. So whereas, I have replicated quite a few insights from my advanced lists at my school, right? I said, hey, I've already built a list of these things. I now want to replicate it in the dashboard. And I've gotten pretty far depending on what, again, endpoints I highlight that I have, metrics, right? You can't drag one in. That's where you start coming into the Power BI world, right? That's where I can say, okay, I have an advanced list or I have an open API endpoint, and I'm going to drag those in and then build the metric on top of that already preconceived list. So those are the differences when you're kind of looking at that phase. I always like to highlight that dashboards allow me to see different information, right? I can see a lot of things for admissions and grading, and I can overlap them into individual insights onto one big dashboard. But when you start going into Power BI, looking at you go into advanced lists to have that additional layer to kind of, okay, that's great. Now I want to maybe add enrollment plus grading plus course blocks plus, you start really kind of bringing in those broader metrics. So absolutely, you can do that in Power BI. It's that beautiful, easy drag and drop. And again, I can replicate a lot of my advanced lists in Dashboard Builder, but you'd be replicating them, right? You'd be grabbing those exact metrics and attributes inside Dashboard Builder. Jeanne, you have anything to add to that? I think that's
Nope, that's exactly it.
Okay.
The advanced list, you can't pull an advanced list in, but if you know your way around advanced lists, you can come in and go over to the metrics that are available, and you'll know exactly what to look for because you've thought about it and you've done it in advanced lists, so you can replicate it as much as you can. Not everything is in here. Again, kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Another question. Do we need to purchase Insight Designer per area, Razor's Edge, education, etc.?
I don't think so.
No, I think it's one price and you get it for all products, whatever
Mhm.
products you have. So as you buy dashboard, buy the dashboard builder, Insight Designer, that then if you have all of our products, right, you can go into Razor's Edge, you can go into Financial Edge, FENXT, which is really nice.
Right. Right. If you've got, if you have it, you can move mine. If you have it, it looks the same in all the different products.
Mm-hmm.
Analysis. Sorry, I have my
RNXT funny gets their own analysis. Yeah, they have their own analysis button.
But it looks really similar.
But it looks exactly the same, right? There's their dashboards
and insights. Yep.
And the great part is, this is the thing I love about Blackbaud is, and hence why I came to this side of the fence, is that we're we realized how far we've gotten with this, and we're like, oh, we got all this in Razor's Edge, we got all this in Financial Edge, we got now education and admissions. Then our brains then start going, okay, what does that mean for the future? How do we then go, okay, let's look at, can we work on combining and what that looks like? So I'm always excited to think of the future of then where Blackbaud goes with this data and with these dashboard builders. I was excited when they first launched. I think they first launched, maybe 5 years ago. And I just keep on getting more excited because the more advanced we get, the more we see those worlds again. It's a total solution. So we see those worlds start really coming together, which I'm excited about.
Oh, good question. Lisa, I don't know that one. Do you know, will the same feature be available for Blackbaud CRM?
That is a great question. I'm not normally in the CRM world. I stick to my K12 bucket, so I can't confer with that. But we can, if you give me your school, I can kind of ping around and find out what information I know, so we can get you an answer.
Right.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, we're right at the end of at the bottom of the half an hour. So, and I think we've gotten through all of the questions in the chat. So, thanks for everybody for participating. I know, this is. I heard baby pool a number of times, and I know, like, when you first start looking at that list of all those things over there, that it doesn't, it feels like maybe you're on the high dive. So, just to reiterate what Lisa said, right? Like, get in there, play with it. I would say I'm willing to bet that both Jeanne and Lisa are in the community, and you can friend them and ask questions. These are, not point and click questions, but really more, I think, like the strategic questions, right? How is your school approaching these metrics? What are you finding to be drivers for retention and expansion, and what are the business teams at the school is looking for, and then of course our help team. If you do have buttonology questions, our support team is happy to help. So with that, thanks so much, Jeanne. Thanks, Lisa, and we look forward to continuing the conversation in the community and elsewhere. So thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, John. It was fantastic. You did great. Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
It was fun working with you. You gave me a lot of confidence.
It was so fun working with you too. That's what I love about my job, is I'm just with schools all day long, every day. So it's fun just to work with our current clients and future. It's great.
Good. This was fun. It made me go back and look at my insights kind of carefully. And I'm like, oh, I should probably dig into that one.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even that refresher when you're like, I've done it, I've built it, and I move on. Then you go back in. Yep.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good. All right. Thanks, Eric, for